The palace was utterly silent. But this wasn't the silence of peace. It was the heavy, watchful quiet that follows a storm. In the heart of Topkapi, Hurrem Sultan, the woman who had once been the storm itself, lay amongst silk cushions. The air was thick with the scent of rose oil, her favorite, a lingering ghost of her power. Her breath was a faint whisper against the opulence of the room. The physicians, the best in the empire, hovered near the doorway, their hushed tones confirming what no one dared to say aloud. The Queen of Hearts and Kingdoms was dying. Even now, her eyes, though clouded with fatigue, burned with the same fire that had once captivated a sultan and reshaped an empire. Her fingers, frail and thin, traced the golden patterns on the quilt covering her. To her last breath, she was a queen. "Has the Sultan been told?" she asked, her voice barely a murmur. Rustem Pasha, her loyal son-in-law, bowed his head. "Yes, my Sultan. His Majesty is in prayer for your recovery." A faint, almost bitter smile touched her lips. Even he knows that prayer cannot turn this tide. Her gaze drifted toward the grand window, where the afternoon sun poured across the marble floor. It was the same view she'd had as a young woman, a terrified slave girl staring at the sea that had carried her here in chains. She was Roxolana then, alone and afraid. But she had learned that fear was a fire, and she had forged it into a weapon. How strange, she thought, that after a lifetime of ruling this palace, of standing above viziers and rival sultanas, she felt that same cold fear once more. This time it wasn't a fear of men, but of time itself running out. She closed her eyes, and memories washed over her. Laughter in the gardens, the melody of a lute, and Suleiman's voice, deep and warm, calling her name. He had seen her not as a possession, but as a mirror to his own soul. Together they had defied centuries of tradition, rewriting the very laws of love and power. The memory was sweet, but it faded, leaving a hollow ache. Her chest trembled with a shallow breath. "Suleiman," she whispered, the name a prayer on her lips. In his private chamber, miles of cold stone away, Sultan Suleiman paused mid-prayer. He felt a sudden, sharp ache deep within his soul, a pain that years of conquest and victory could never numb. It was the feeling of a world shifting on its axis. Back in her room, Hürrem stirred. "Rustem," she murmured, her voice finding a sliver of its old command. "Bring Selim." Rustem bowed deeply and left without a word. She turned her head, a slow, deliberate movement, toward the light. Beyond the intricate latticework of the windows, the Bosphorus glimmered, indifferent. "So many battles," she whispered to the empty room, "and not a single one was worth the heart they cost." The ghosts of her past circled her bed like silent witnesses, Mahidevran's simmering wrath, Ibrahim Pasha's arrogant pride, and the tragic face of Prince Mustafa, whose death had haunted her dreams. She had done what she believed was necessary. She had secured her son's path to the throne. But looking back now, the price felt immeasurable. When Prince Selim entered, the scent of the road still clung to him. He was the son she had fought the world for, the reason for every one of her sins. He fell to his knees beside her bed, his face a mask of grief. "You came late," she said, her voice laced with a familiar, gentle chiding. "As always." "Don't say that," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You'll recover. You always do." Her eyes softened, a flicker of the mother he knew. Do not lie to a woman who built her life on lies. He tried to manage a smile, but his lips shook. "How am I to live without you?" "You will rule," she said, the words simple and absolute. "I am not you," he confessed, the admission heavy with shame. "No," she replied, a strange pride in her tone. "And that is your strength. I was born to survive. You were born to reign." Tears glistened in Selim's eyes. "You made me strong, but I do not feel it now." She exhaled a soft, weary sound. "Then learn to feel nothing. That is how kings endure." He bent lower, pressing his forehead to her hand. "Do you forgive me?" "For what?" she asked, genuinely confused. For not being enough. A faint smile graced her lips. You are my blood. You were always enough. A profound silence filled the room. Outside, clouds gathered, dimming the golden light of the afternoon. She could hear the distant call of the muezzin, a timeless sound that marked the passing of the day, indifferent to the passing of an empress. Tell your father, she whispered, her voice barely audible, that I waited for him. Her eyes glistened with a mix of love and regret. Tell him the roses I planted in the garden still bloom. Selim swallowed against the lump in his throat. I will tell him. Her breath grew slower, more shallow. Do you hate me? She asked suddenly, her eyes searching his. He looked up, startled by the question. Never. You should, she said quietly. I taught you to trust no one, not even yourself. I taught you the language of deceit. You taught me to survive, he answered, his voice thick with tears. Then live, she murmured, her command a final blessing. That is all I ever wanted. Her gaze wandered up to the painted dome of her chamber, glowing in the soft fading light. Do you know, she whispered, her voice growing distant, I never truly belonged here. Even when they called me Sultan, I was still the girl from the cold lands, the slave who learned to laugh when everyone else wept. Her voice weakened further. They called me a witch, a temptress, a sinner, but I was only ever what this world made me. Selim wept silently, his tears falling onto her hand. I built my throne with love, she said, her voice a thread of sound, and I guarded it with blood. That is what it means to be remembered. Her eyes fluttered. History will call me cruel, let it. They do not know what cruelty is. Cruelty is loving a man who belongs to an empire. A shudder ran through her frail body. If you ever love, my son, love from a distance. Love destroys kings. Selim could only nod, his grief choking him. Her hand, which had held his so tightly, slipped weakly from his grasp. I see it now. My beginning and my end. I was born in chains, and I forged them into a crown. Her lips trembled one last time as she whispered a name, a love, a lifetime. Suleiman. And then, her last breath escaped, as soft and serene as a sigh. The chambermaids, who had stood silently in the corners, finally let their sobs fill the stillness. Outside, in the garden she had so carefully tended, the wind stirred the roses she had planted all those years ago. By nightfall, the news had spread through every corner of the vast palace. Hurrem Sultan, the Haseki, the foreign queen, the laughing one who changed the course of an empire, was gone. Suleiman came to her chamber in the dead of night, moving through the silent palace like a ghost. He stood before her still form, wrapped in white linen. For the first time in decades, the shoulders of the magnificent sultan bent beneath the unbearable weight of grief. He took her hand, so cold now yet still so graceful, and whispered words that no one else would ever hear. He gave an order that defied custom, just as she had in life. He commanded that she be buried beside him, within the walls of the great mosque he had built. When her tomb was finally sealed, the court poets wrote a line that would echo through history. He conquered the world. She conquered him. And years later, when Suleiman the Magnificent was laid to rest beside his beloved Hürrem, the empire whispered her final defiant truth, a phrase carried on the wind through the courtyards of Topkapi, a testament to her incredible life. I was born in chains, and I died a sultan,